All right, here we are straight up at 10 o'clock. Thank you everyone for joining in on our show. Really appreciate you being here. Again, we're here with Rick Allen, who is the founder of our company, BioLincius. We're located in Estes Park, Colorado. And the entire gist of today's presentation here is that we want to talk about public awareness, public education. And in general, it is how we can have the public help us reduce things like fog in the wastewater treatment plants. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a bit of a Q&A where we're going to walk through a few slides here. Again, this is going to be really super short. This is part of our First Friday webinar series that we're kicking off here. And for those of you who don't know Rick, he is a prolific trainer in the wastewater industry, especially out here in the West, places like Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, Washington, the tri-state area. What are the states in the tri-state area, Rick? And that
California, Arizona, and Utah.
Fantastic. So lots of training experience here, lots of wisdom, and really this is just meant to kind of be a little bit of a teaser for also some of the training, the full day trainings, the half day trainings that we run, and you can find out more about that over on our site called wastewatertrainer.com. So Rick, what we did here is we went ahead into one of your regular presentations and we just kind of found the highlights of a few of the slides here. And I just kind of wanted you to talk through some of the slides that we're going to go ahead and put up on the screen here. Now, could you, before we get into that, could you just tell us a little bit of the background of why this class is important to you and why you decided to put it together?
Excuse me. Well, the reason this class is important to me is because most of the population of the United States does not have any idea where wastewater goes. They know that if they push the handle down on the toilet or press the button on top of the toilet that's number 1 or number 2, it just goes away. They don't care where it goes and what happens to it after that, or what kind of issues it could be causing in the collection system or in the wastewater plant itself. So it's really important for us in this industry to make sure we start educating people on what they can and what they should not be flushing down the toilet. That's what it boils down to.
Got it. Very good. Very good. Well, we're going to go ahead and advance this first slide. And there we are. So here we are on the first slide. Oops, sorry. Let me go ahead and back up. There we go. So can you go ahead and tell us a bit about what we're seeing here in this slide and why this jumped out to you? It seems like there's a lot of, whoops, we're going to go ahead and mute everyone here. There we go. Yeah, so can you go ahead and tell us what this slide's about?
This slide, this is actually the Fats, Oils, and Grease program for the city of Bismarck.
Mm-hmm.
Bismarck has one of the most aggressive fats, oils, and grease programs I've ever seen. I think they do an excellent job at it. And they have developed their own marketing campaign for public awareness to the point that they actually have a billboard on, used to, I don't know if they still do, have a billboard on every highway entering Bismarck saying, keep grease out of the drain. So, and they've gone to even to the point of wrapping one of their Suburbans with a wrap that says keep grease out of the drain. So they've been really accomplished at reducing the amount of fats, oils, and grease hitting the headworks at their wastewater plant. And so I think part of their system is, and if you go, they're doing PSAs, and we'll get into all the things that they do, but it's really about educating the people in your community on not to flush grease down the toilet. Don't put the turkey grease on Thanksgiving down the toilet. Don't, pour grease down the drain from the frying pan that you just used. Don't pour it down the kitchen drain, because all that stuff hits the wastewater plant. And unless you're using fats, oils, and grease as a cogeneration media for creating methane to produce electricity at your plant, you really don't want a bunch of grease in your system. And the grease has all kinds of other issues. It'll plug up pipes. It'll impact lift stations, how they work, and the floats and the sensors on when the lift station has to come on or when it doesn't need to come on. And so it's more about teaching the public in your community what to do with fats, oils, and grease, which is basically scrape it out of the pan into the trash or put it into a tin can. And I think we have a slide of some of that too. And just dispose of it at the landfill, not at the wastewater plant.
So let's pop up. You had referenced the wrap there on the suburban. So I went
Right.
ahead and pulled up that slide. I believe if we can pop back over to previous slide here. Yeah. So do we have? Yeah, the can is on its way, I believe. So these
Mhm.
obviously look like they are some of the handouts that they have. Now, can you tell me how the municipalities get these out in the hands of the public?
Well, there's several ways. Bismarck's got a really unique way because they actually have built racks that hold their keep grease out of the drain and don't flush sanitary wipes. And you can see the little plastic, the green scrapers that they provide for people to scrape the grease out of the pan into
Okay.
the
Okay.
trash.
Got it.
Um, and the last time I talked to them, I think they had already distributed. And they put these racks in the convenience stores, so like Circle K and places like that. There's this rack that has keep grease out of the drain, don't flush sanitary wipes, and they have a um, a supply of these scrapers for people to use scrape grease out of the frying pans. And the last time I talked to them, I think they just placed another order for those scrapers, and they'd already distributed like 4,000 of those through the city of Bismarck.
Wow.
And that's pretty impressive that people are taking them. Now, when I look at them, I'm thinking, Bismarck, North Dakota, they might be using them as windshield scrapers for getting ice off their windshield. But that being said, I think it's still a really good promotional thing. And all of the stuff that Bismarck did, they designed all this themselves. So we can't use their marketing materials, we can't use their images. But
Mhm.
I think if you would call Bismarck, you might talk to them. They might give you some permission to maybe use some of that stuff.
Mhm.
But it is really, it's up to you to make sure that it's something that's catchy, gets their attention. When I was in Olympia, Washington, they have a folder that they give out of what not to flush down the drain, and I was really amazed because one of the things that was on the do not flush was goldfish. So, I mean, you can have a lot of fun with this if you just do it. So, and public and tours of your plant are probably the best thing that you can ever do, and you'll have more fun with that than about anything else you can do. So,
Fantastic. So for those of you who have just joined us, we're here with Rick Allen. He's the founder of BioLincius, prolific wastewater trainer out here in the West. I'll just say kind of west of the Mississippi, most of those states. And we're talking about how to remove or how to help, how to enlist the public's help in removing issues from your wastewater treatment system. And we're, of course, here looking at some of the examples that Rick uses in his training classes. So for those of you who are familiar with Zoom, there is, if you go either up to the top or the bottom, wherever your control panel is, you're going to see a chat window. If you have questions, go ahead and pop those into the chat window because we're going to grab those questions here and answer those for you here in just a few moments. A couple more slides that I wanted to show here, Rick. We've already talked about this one. Of course, everything goes back to how much is this going to cost, okay? Tell us a little bit about cost of really doing a good public education program.
well, these costs actually came from Bismarck. So, like I say, they have one of the most aggressive grease ordinances, grease programs that I've seen. In fact, I recommend them all the time when I'm teaching. Um, but if you look at that, PSAs, public service announcements are free. You can go to your newspaper, should be able to go to your newspaper, your local TV, your local radio, even regional newspapers, and tell them you want to put in a public service announcement on keeping grease out of, and what it could be keeping grease out of the drain. It could be a sanitary wipes issue, and they should do that for you for free. There's no cost to that. All you have to do is get somebody in your graphics department or locally to put something together for you. The billboards that the city of Bismarck has, they have three of them. One on every highway coming into the city of Bismarck has a billboard that says "Keep grease out of the drain." Those cost them, I think, $525 total. They might have received some kind of special dispensation because they were a municipality. The vehicle wrap cost them $2,000. They already owned the Suburban, so it was just taking one of their current vehicles and putting a wrap on it, a couple of grand. They put out 1,000 posters and 2,300 pamphlets. And they actually did start doing door hangers and putting stuff on. And one of my favorite stories from them is they actually were doing a door hangers for sanitary wipes, and they had one subdivision that they were putting them in, according to the story that I remember. And they went in and they did it twice. They went in and put down don't flush sanitary wipes. Went in a couple of weeks later and put out another one that said somebody in your area is still flushing sanitary wipes. And then the third one would be somebody on your block is still flushing sanitary wipes. I mean, you have to get their attention, and if you get buy-in from half of the people in a subdivision, they will make sure that the rest of the people in the subdivision start adhering to that same policy. So it's just about touching them. You have to do it many, many times. Any type of print material, they have to see it 3 times before they actually read it. That's the national average. So you just got to keep putting it in front of them again and again and again. So their total cost for their entire program, the pamphlets, the posters, the vehicle wrap, the billboards, they spent about $7,500 to keep grease out of the drain. Now, the last time I talked to somebody there, they said they figured it had saved them it probably reduced their grease by about 10%. So, and that's still not, you can say, well, that's not very much, but it actually is when you're a city of 100,000 people. That's a lot of grease that they've removed from their system.
That's amazing. What I like about this is that it isn't just putting the pamphlet in with the bills that you maybe send out, right? So your water bill. This is front to back, very comprehensive program here. So yeah, fantastic. I can see how these multiple touches in multiple areas will really start to have an impact.
Right. And sending out notices in your bill with your bills is not a good idea. I mean, you can do it. You should still do it, but you're only going to reach about the average is about 40% of the people that actually need to read that are the only ones that are going to receive it. Because a lot of times the billing notice does not go to the person that's living in the house. It goes to the landlord, and the landlord may not be passing that on to whoever the renter is. So when I talk to a lot of municipalities, they're like, yeah, we send stuff out in our billing notices all the time. It's not necessarily getting to the person that needs to read it.
Got it. Well, let's do one last slide here, and then we'll open things up for questions. And let's see if this guy's going to generate for us. And there we go. So walk us through this. This looks like it's different artwork to me.
Well, this is a company. I've seen them at a few trade shows here recently. They are a company that actually develops an entire marketing program for keeping grease out of the drains and sanitary wipes. It says $190. I don't know what it costs to do this because I didn't have a conversation with them. So I'm actually giving them some free advertising here. I don't know why I'm doing that, but anyway, it's one of the companies out there that does have a full program that you can enlist in, and they will come in and try to educate your whole entire town on, and they put out pamphlets and door hangers and all of that kind of stuff. If you're going to do door hangers, I do want to throw this out there. I had an operator out of Idaho probably about a year ago, and she was saying that when she wanted to put out door hangers in her town, she just went to the Boy Scouts, because the Boy Scouts can get merit badges for community service. She can give 100 door hangers to Boy Scouts, and she knows that every one of them will get hung on a door someplace. And she's pretty happy with that program, and it ends up costing her, she might have to buy them an ice cream cone or a kid's meal at McDonald's afterwards. So it's really cheap labor, and it's working extremely well for her. So I recommend that you get with your associations, the Cub Scouts, the Rotary, whomever you can get with, and get them also invested in doing this for you or with you. You'll be surprised how much benefit you can get from it. The other thing that I want to say is you cannot give enough tours of your wastewater plant. You have to do tours. I don't care if you're just a lagoon system with a headworks, but you need to do tours. And I recommend that you work with, probably 4th graders to 9th graders in the school system. School teachers are always looking for a place to have a field day where they don't have to teach a class. You go to the school and say, like to take some of this, have you bring students over. I'll give them a tour of the water plant and the wastewater plant, not just wastewater, but both plants. Teach them where water comes from, where wastewater goes. Most of the people in your town, I would say, unless you're a really small town, most of the people in your town don't even know where your wastewater plant is at. So you have to get them educated and bring in the Rotary and bring in all kinds of these community service organizations, bring them in and give them tours of your wastewater plant.
Fantastic. All right. Well, excellent. So what we'll do now, and thank you for that, Rick. This is really good, very informative. In part of this brand we're trying to wrap around the first Friday webinars here is to keep these things really super short because obviously you guys have a lot of work to do. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find the chat area here to look at that guy and get it turned on. Looks like we do have something in the chat window. All right, so if you have questions, I would love for you to go ahead and put those in the chat window for us. That would be dynamite. Rick, what are some typical questions that you get whenever you're teaching the full version of this class? What are some questions that you typically see or hear from the class?
Well, I think it's more about comments that I get from, I love to have operators tell me that they give tours because they say it's one of the best days in their entire career is when they get to teach classes and they get people in and said you'd be surprised you get these kids in and they're wandering around talking about how everything smells and it stinks and on and on and on, and then before long kids are picking up shit off the floor and throwing it at each other, and I'm like, you don't mean like really shit, right? And they said, oh, they'll pick up anything on the floor and throw it at each other. And then they always tell me that the people that start throwing things are usually the girls in the class. Sorry, ladies, but and so they have so much fun with it. You know, kids that are saying, oh yeah, there's my Hot Wheels car that I flushed last week. Can I have that back? Or they start showing people showing these kids what gets flushed, like dentures and all of that kind of stuff, and money, and it's like, wow, what kind of an industry is this? But those kids are the ones that will go back and educate their parents. They're the ones that will say to mom, you can't pour that turkey grease down the toilet on Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
Now, I grew up in an era where if I said that, I'd have got backhanded into a corner. But today, kids have a massive amount of impact on their parents, on what they buy, how they deal with the world that we live in, and they're your best source of education. I recommend that you do a tour of your facility at least quarterly. And it doesn't have to just be kids. Again, bring in the Rotary Club, bring them in and give them a tour of your wastewater plant. If you have some industry in your community, like a processing plant, a brewery, any of those kind of places, bring them in and show them what their stuff that they put in your collection system actually does to your wastewater plant.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, Rick, for this very quick, super fast, abbreviated webinar. Very informative. And for those of you who enjoyed this, by all means, go back out to biolencius.net. Look for our webinar schedule. We run these about every other month right now. And again, it's going to be on the first Friday. We have the complete schedule listed out for the next 12 months. Go grab some of those webinars right now. Get signed up. And again, thanks so much for everyone being here. Really appreciate it. You guys take care and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.